Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of congregational humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday Assembly for March 26, 2023. It's so good to see familiar faces that we haven't seen in a while, and new faces and people we see a lot, both those of us who are on site and folks who are online, and if you're watching us later on demand. We're glad that we are all here as a part of this gathered community, that you found parking today, made your way past the potholes. We believe that next Sunday, the parking restrictions will be lifted in Minneapolis as the snow continues to melt. Hooray and hallelujah. As we approach the Trans Day of Visibility this coming Friday on March 31st, I'll note that there is a rally at the Capitol on Friday morning, and so invite anyone to join us there. I've put that in our Facebook group. And our theme this month is the path of vulnerability. I chose these words from Lily Elba, a Danish painter, from her book, A Portrait of the First Sex Change. Each step forward to become the person we are makes it harder to go backward, to return to the shadowy private world of closed doors and shuttered windows. The experience, the awakening of one's true self after being so long suppressed, can never be adequately explained with language. Come, in all of our full selves, in our full humanity, let us gather in community.
Good morning. There's our title of our first piece. Hey, great. So we're going to be doing two pieces today with the choir by a local composer, Elizabeth Alexander. She does a lot of composing for UU, Faiths, and just other general compositions. The opening piece is going to be called Do Not Leave Your Cares at the Door, and kind of in the spirit of the vulnerability theme for the month. It's just about being able to don't hide your problems when you come into this community here. We all obviously have problems, and this is part of this community, is being able to share that and support each other. So that's kind of the opening one here, and then later we'll be doing another piece of hers. It's the tail end of a much larger work that she wrote, and that one is The Chalice of Our Hearts, which is again kind of about community, coming into this space to be able to rekindle the flame in our chalices. So that's Elizabeth Alexander today, and we'll get started.
Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. Bring your pain and sorrow and joy. There's a place for them upon the altar of life. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. This is a place and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here, and do not leave your cares at the door. Oh, come in, come in.
Thank you, choir. When we gather for assembly here at First Unitarian Society, one of the symbolic rituals we share is to light a chalice, which represents the common values we come together to strengthen and reinforce. And each week we highlight one of those values by reading one of the principles of Unitarian Universalism or one of the aspirations of First Unitarian Society, all of which you can see on our website. So while Paul lights the chalice, I'll read the fourth aspiration of First Unitarian Society, which is, we aspire to support one another's journey toward meaning and connection in the here and now.
And now we get to join our voices with this wonderful choir. If you are willing and able, please rise to sing number 301 in the Grace Song book, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. The lyrics will show up here, and let's sing out.
Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores while spirits fly, over the ocean, over the land, our faithful quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children ask the reasons why, in our lives the answer shows, and by our love they learn and grow. Touch the earth, reach the sky, all are born and all shall die, lives of time left in between, to follow a star, to build a dream. Touch the earth, reach the sky, hug the laughter, feel the cry, may we see where we can give, for this is what it means to live. Touch the earth, reach the sky, soar with courage ever high, spirits joining as we fly, to touch the earth and reach the sky.
Please remain standing for our congregational covenant. Love
Love is the spirit of this place, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Thank you. Please be seated. First Unitarian Society is a congregational humanist community. We are here for each other. On Sundays, we take a few moments to reflect on the joys, sorrows, and the milestones of the human experience. In doing this, we remind ourselves of the value of a moment of stillness, and we are reminded to stay in touch with our own humanity. As a gathered community, we do this so that no one among us is alone, either in celebrating life's joys or in facing life's tragedies and burdens. We are here for each other. Today, we Note with special thoughts, Wendy Anberg, who is at home now after several days at Mercy Hospital with atrial fibrillation. Wendy is recovering well now. She's now stabilized and will begin that cardiac rehab soon. We send healing wishes to Wendy, Michael, and all the family. Please note that downstairs we have a card basket, and you can send a note to any of the folks who are mentioned during Joys and Sorrows here, or other folks who are unable to be here with us. This week I chatted with Vince Barton, Carol Rydberg, and Lee and Ray Schreurs. I reassured them that they are still very much a part of the FUS community and that we are a part of them. They all said that they have appreciated receiving cards. And those of you who have received cards over the years, you know what that means. So if you feel so inclined, please stop by the basket. The address is there. You fill out the card in the envelope and just leave it in the basket. They'll come up to the office and we'll mail them out for you. Now we take a few moments to reflect on our world and those who work to comfort and heal the suffering, and those who work for justice.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Is this working? There we go. All right. So in our time for all ages, and as we finish out the month of March and our reflections on the theme of vulnerability, I want to share another story with you. In this story, we meet a young person who shows us that vulnerability can sometimes be necessary in order to express our full selves. So let's take a look. This is Julian is a Mermaid by Jessica Love. This boy is named Julian, and this is his abuela. And those are some mermaids. Julian loves mermaids. Vámonos, mijo. This is our stop. Abuela, did you see the mermaids? I saw them, mijo. Abuela, I am also a mermaid. I'm going to take a bath. You be good. Julian has a good idea. Oh. Uh-oh. Come here, mijo. For me, abuela? For you, Julian. Where are we going? You'll see, says Abuela. Mermaids, whispers Julian. Like you, mijo. Let's join them. And they do. That was a sweet ending, right? But in order to get there, Julian had to stumble into that moment of, oh, uh-oh. We didn't know, and Julian didn't know, exactly how Abuela would respond. She clearly loves him, but there's still risk. Julian still experiences vulnerability. He didn't have to be vulnerable, and maybe didn't intend to be, but vulnerability was necessary to experience the full measure of Abuela's acceptance and support. Vulnerability, by definition, is scary, but sometimes it's worth the risk. And now we'll sing out the children.
Our search for kindling takes us far beyond ourselves. There we gather truth and mystery. We return with joy to tend the chalice of our home.
Our search for kindling takes us
far beyond ourselves. There we gather truth and mystery. We return with joy to tend the chalice of our heart. Takes us far beyond ourselves. Our search for kindling takes us far beyond ourselves. There we gather truth and mystery. We return with joy to tend the chalice of our hearts.
Beautiful, thanks. This week we are celebrating Trans Day of Visibility, and I want to recognize the vulnerability inherent in such visibility. The title of my talk today is Sitting Pretty or Sitting Duck. That dichotomy, the exact opposition between being out and being yourself and being in physical danger, in danger often for your life, is what I want to think through today. Because the American culture wars have engulfed discussion of the rights of transgender people as citizens of states and of the nation as a whole. And we all know that when American political rhetoric reaches a certain point, people get hurt and rights get trampled upon. Here in the state of Minnesota, as you know, our state government is working to establish the state as a trans refuge. As progressives, we insist upon the value and freedom of individual conscience, the freedom and responsibility of personal choice, and the liberty of a socially responsible lifestyle. We progressives know that liberties and responsibilities are often a balancing act between the self-perception, individuality, and the good of the collective whole. As we consider these concepts today, I want to underline two ideas. One is from the mathematician and the theologian Blaise Pascal, who wrote, "All of man's problems stem from his inability to sit alone in a room for any length of time." Or, in gender-neutral terms, all human problems stem from our inability to sit alone in a room for any length of time. And the other idea that I think is central to this discussion was well phrased by Audre Lorde. If you don't define yourself for yourself, then you will be crushed into the other's fantasies of you, and eaten alive. Now, to explore these concepts, first let's think a few moments about what a self even is. Most definitions of self that have been used to define this end up saying something about essential being. Essential being is the self. That's the essence of you, which I think is probably the most popular, the general understanding here. The challenge with that definition is that we are always putting some sort of description in front of that word self, aren't we? Terms like real self and true self and social self and spiritual self, and there's all kinds of selves. And the mere fact that we put all these descriptive qualifiers in front of the term self indicates the challenge. For example, in my thinking, I've come to the conclusion that the social self and, let's say, the religious or the spiritual self are often at cross purposes. But then, how can it be that one self can be at cross purposes with another self? Are we different selves in various circumstances, or is the self so large that it bears positioning all kinds of different places and ways? So, think with me here. Blaise Pascal, when he claims that one of the problems with humanity is that we can't sit in a room alone for any length of time, he's talking about that spiritual or that religious self, perhaps more clearly termed the contemplative self. The self that meditates, prays, does yoga, journals, is mindful, does art, that sort of stuff, and that sort of self. The goal of most contemplative practices, as I understand them, is to weaken, ideally to destroy, the ego and get at what we often call in theology the absolute self, whatever that means. Now, this is a theological and philosophical question. Is there an absolute self that we can reach through contemplative practice in that quiet room by ourselves? Or is the absolute self only one more in a long list of the terms that we put in front of that term, self, and think that we're saying something meaningful when actually we aren't? I know that theology and philosophy is often like a bottomless pit or like a snake swallowing its own tail. But if what we are talking about is giving human beings the right and the responsibility of finding and defining what their true selves are, I think we need some signposts to know that we're getting there. And speaking of theology, I think the German theologian Ludwig Feuerbach got it right when he said, theology is anthropology. Theology is anthropology. The work of theology is the work of studying the human animal. So, what is the center of the problem with the human animal, I have to ask? That's what religions and philosophies are supposed to be working on. Allow me to make some crass generalizations about what religions and philosophies are trying to do. Taoists say maladjustment to the nature of the universe is our human problem. Hindus attribute the problem to our inability to accept our oneness with Brahma, with all that is. Buddhists say human suffering is a central issue for we humans, again, because we just cannot adapt to change. Muslims say that an insufficient acceptance of the will of Allah is the human problem. Ego, self, ego. Christians say it's sin, which is a separation from the will of the divine. But you see, they're all kind of going in that same direction, aren't they? You see how one problem centers the thinking in religions. But let's remember what Feuerbach said, theology is anthropology. And I think he's right. Yet accepting the concept as true opens some other challenges for us. We clearly don't know ourselves very well, do we? We don't know what consciousness is. We don't know what sentience is. We're still working on that. And therefore, Feuerbach's theology as anthropology goes on to other things, archaeology, psychology. There's all kinds of ologies here trying to figure out what the heck we people are. And we still haven't got there. We don't understand what the anthropos, as the Greeks called humanity, we don't know what the human is. Now, I hasten to add that Feuerbach's insight does not necessarily mean that there's not a God out there somewhere, but it does mean that when we human beings think about ultimate concerns, that actually we're thinking about human concerns. We want our loved ones safe. We want to be safe. We want our thoughts to be pleasant. We want to be respected for who and what we are. So, back to that contradiction. The removal of ego, or at least the diminution of ego, the I in our thinkings and actions, is what classic religion and what we nowadays call spirituality often has been about. The Japanese philosopher Tanabe Hijima wrote that doing philosophy, which he thought was also doing meditation and theology, is about radical self-awareness. Radical self-awareness and reflection upon your ultimate concerns, the big ones. But that's in Pascal's lonely room, isn't it? That, at least he thought, we can't stand very long. Now, remember, Pascal didn't have a smartphone to check in his lonely room, or a laptop, or even streaming, for God's sake. Pascal meant being actually alone with yourself. He thought that most human problems arise because we cannot face our absolute selves. We're scared. Which leads me to ask, do the majority of people find their true selves so terrible, so frightening, so boring, or whatever, that they'll do anything to ignore themselves? I don't know. Even checking eBay rather than thinking about the true absolute self, right? Whatever. But we walk out of that room of contemplation or we check the smartphone, whatever we do, we leave meditation and contemplation of our higher selves and our higher values, and we go out into the world, the social world, where we run up against other human beings. What then? Many feel, as Kurt Cobain phrased it, they laugh at me because I am different. I laugh at them because they are all the same. Yes, Kurt. To illustrate how the self changes between the quiet room and the rowdy world, let's reflect on an old Zen Buddhist story for a moment. Once there was a very holy man, and he lived at the top of a high mountain in a cave. You get the New Yorker cartoon, right? He was a very holy man, and people from the village in the valley below would climb and climb and climb to get up there to talk to the holy man. And when they got there, he gave very wise advice, and he could even heal people with his touch. But the way up the mountain was so dangerous that several villagers were hurt on the journey. So a delegation from the village climbed up the mountain and begged the holy man to come down to the village to live so that he could help everyone there. It took some convincing, but eventually the holy man, in his compassion, relented and came down from the mountain. Now, when he got to the valley and the village, the people were waiting for him. They wanted to touch him so that they could be healed. They wanted to talk to him so they could hear his wise, wise words. And soon, bump, shove, the people crowded around, jostling to get to the holy man. The holy man became concerned for his safety. He began to push back against the heaving crowd. And soon, the holy man wasn't holy anymore. He couldn't heal with his touch, and he didn't have anything wise to say. He had lost his gift. Now, that's an old Zen Buddhist story, but you get the point, I think. The holy man was holy only when he lived in his secluded bubble with his contemplative self. When he stepped outside his meditation space, he was like everybody else. Which leads to my question, how do we take that absolute centered self, if we ever get there in that quiet room, out into the bustle and shove of the social world? Who or what do we become when people begin to laugh or to shove or to pass laws against the true self that we have found? That's the question. Sure, it's difficult, perhaps I would say nearly impossible, to keep the calm, tranquil centeredness that we find in contemplation when we go out into the world. Yet, despite the hurly-burly of daily life, can we be ourselves out there? Now, self-expression, we know, is a central part of our liberal heritage. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Insist on yourself, never imitate." Henry David Thoreau wrote, "I would rather sit on a pumpkin and have it all to myself than be crowded on a velvet cushion." And of course, we know about Thoreau's different drummer. Who or what are we when we go outside our own silent space? Philosophers have thought a great deal about this over time. The Russian philosopher Alexander Kojev, for example, wrote, "Desire is the presence of absence." Very interesting philosopher, Russian. He kept up, even though he moved to Paris, he kept up an open communication with Joseph Stalin. And people were, why the heck are you talking to that guy, right? But he was trying to shape Stalin's ideas. Stalin apparently didn't catch on all that well. But desire is the presence of absence, he said. We desire to go out into the social world and be seen by others because sitting alone is an absence of recognition and validation by other human beings, because we are social animals. One of Kojève's students, the French psychologist Jacques Lacan, expanded on his professor's idea, writing, "Desire is the desire of the other's desire." Desire is the desire of the other, notice the capital O there, other's desire. That sounds very much like what most people think French philosophy sounds like, I know. What Lacan is saying is that what we want from others when we leave our quiet meditation pillows and go out into the world is recognition. Recognition for who and what we see ourselves as being in the silence when we think of ourselves. In that wonderful book, Julian is a Mermaid, that's what Julian thirsts for. That's what Julian desires, is recognition by a major force in Julian's life, Abuela, grandma. With the validation of Abuela, Julian is a mermaid. Actually, Jacques Lacan is stating something that's kind of obvious, that we desire to be desired. And it's larger than wanting to be physically desired. Lacan capitalized the term other, meaning everyone except ourselves in society, the other. Desire is the desire of the other's desire. We wish to be seen in the social world as we feel we are in our true selves. As some of you know, one of my kids is transgender. She's in her late 30s now. She came out over 20 years ago. So I've had a lot of experiences to see how my daughter dwells in space over time. A constant in my daughter's life is people staring. The gender cues that we learn to depend on in American culture don't compute for people when they see my daughter. So they stare. You see how this turns the tables on what a human being desires when interacting with the outside world. Instead of living in a world of others, my daughter is othered with a capital O. What those stares are saying is, I don't see you as the person you wish to be seen as. And that's bad enough. It's devastating to many transgender people. What's worse is what happens when your very being becomes a political football. When people say, we're going to pass laws about which restroom you can use. We're going to pass laws so you can't make your own decisions about your body and your own health. We're going to pass laws so that it is illegal to be you. Those laws say, no, Julian, you're not a mermaid. You're confused. You're a child who needs adults to set you straight. Get out there and play with guns. Desire is the desire of the other's desire. That could be as simple as someone not looking at you funny. That could be as simple as using someone's preferred pronouns. Anything that would say, I see you, I respect you, Julian, you make a beautiful mermaid. That's the gift that we, in our life-giving religious tradition, can give. And I say we must give that. Audre Lorde knew the situation well and put it very simply. If you don't define yourself for yourself, then you will be crushed into the other's fantasies of you and be eaten alive. She knew that firsthand. So a final thought. Blaise Pascal, I think, got it wrong, actually. Yes, it's true that we distractible human beings have a lot of trouble sitting alone in quiet contemplation. Yet a larger problem is our inability to mentally stay on the mountaintop despite being in the village. A larger problem is that we so seldom share our quiet, centered, and peaceful absolute selves. One thing that I've pledged for myself as a old, white, heterosexual male is to be not that guy. I don't want to be that guy who others, and stares. Marcus Aurelius, who you know I love as a Stoic philosopher, Roman emperor, so he had a little busy outside life. He was also a philosopher. He put it this way, and that's how I want to end, is to think about this today. He said, many seek retreats for themselves, places in the country, by the sea, and the mountains. I think of these two, but this is a common mistake. In truth, you can retreat into yourself anytime. There is nowhere quieter. Nowhere are you more free. Tranquility is nothing more than the good ordering of the mind. Thank you.
That requires a song in response. We'll stand as we're able to sing Circle Round for Freedom. It's number 155 in the Gray Song Book, and we'll sing it twice through.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for restore, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us in prison. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for restore. For the children of our children, keep the circle.
Please be seated.
Good morning. My name is Ann Langard, and I'm serving on your Board of Trustees, and here to talk with you this morning about two things that are important. First of all, as spring is barely rounding the corner for us, we're looking at the final quarter of our fiscal year. Comes up pretty quick, but that's what progressives do, is move it forward. So, if you're considering a donation for this current fiscal year, and in particular for today, please do so. Make that donation. You can go by the office, and Kate will help you out with that. She can accept a check, cash, coin, and you can go online. Simply go to firstunitarian.org, and in the upper right corner, click on Give. The second part is that the new year, of course, starts then July 1, and what we're looking for now are the pledge forms that we need from all of our good friends and members, and that's simply what your intention is for the coming year. So I thank you, and what was the name of the first piece? Don't leave yourself at the door, but you can leave a donation at the door.
Well, good morning. I'm Joe Lazor, and I'm the treasurer of the Foundation of First Unitarian Society. And it's a pleasure to represent the foundation here today. And as most of you know, the foundation exists to help provide a continuing source of financial support for FUS. Well, what a great day to bring that up. The foundation, just a little background, is made up of 10 different funds with varying goals. These funds have grown over time through donations, both large and small, from our members and friends, and they now total just over $2 million in assets. And now, due to this long-term generosity of many members, The foundation has been able to disperse grants in excess of over $360,000 just in the past 5 years. So there's been a fair amount of money coming out to help support programs here. And today, I have the pleasure of presenting the Foundation's 2023 gift to the Society from two of those funds, the Endowment Fund and the Future Is Now Fund. And today's gift, this year's gift, totals $71,900. Yep, pat yourselves on the back. And this represents the single largest annual gift that the Foundation's been able to give the Society, and is approximately about 5% of the assets in those funds. Now, we also are hoping and planning to disperse up to an additional $63,000 to support religious education, social justice, music, and the arts at FUS from the other funds. And so these disbursements come from the dedicated funds that we have established by member donors over the years, including the Hop Hendrickson Fund, the Pearson Fund, Safer Fund, Sigmund Fund, the Wilson Fund, and the Ogren Funds. Now, I would like to take a moment to ask my fellow Foundation board members who are here today to stand up. And that includes you, John. You represent, you're on the Foundation board too, as a liaison from the FUS board. So I saw at least 4 people here, but there are others as well. And as a group, we'd like to extend our thanks, a huge thank you to everybody who's contributed to these funds over the years, as well as to thank past Foundation board members, the FUS board members who work with us, and the FUS staff here for your tireless efforts. And finally, if anybody's interested in learning how you can help the Foundation continue providing this financial support by either making a contribution or perhaps putting the Foundation in your estate planning, please reach out to me or any one of our other Foundation board members, and just we'd be happy to chat about that. So again, thanks for the time. And David, I have a little gift for FUS. There you go.
Woo, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Our annual auction is coming up on Saturday, April the 22nd. It starts out with happy hour at 5 p.m. with live music, hors d'oeuvres, and beverages. See Barb Lutz downstairs during the mini meal today for tickets or a donation form, or purchase your tickets online. At the FUS website, click on Events, then the Annual Auction, then click to make your donations or to register and bid online. The first order of business is getting in those donations. Fill out your donation online or on paper, then send in photos to auction@firstunitarian.org, and we will do the rest. What can you donate? We love experiences which will get us together. How about a dinner for 6 or a weekend at the cabin? Teach a class, donate your handicrafts. Everyone loves homemade food, cakes, candy, jellies, and jams. Or donate your time and special skills in someone's house or garden. Or any electronic items, new or in good shape, those will surely sell. When you click to register and bid, you'll see a brand new auction page. You can register and buy happy hour tickets now. We will be adding items as those donations are submitted, and the online auction bidding opens on April the 16th. Donate online at the FUS website or see Barb Lutz downstairs after assembly today and get those donations rolling in.
We have just a few announcements that we'll share. I want to say to parents of children who are in religious education today, our young ones are making flower masks for our Earth Day assembly in April, and so they may take just a little longer than usual. So join them and finish up with their mask with them, and the older ones here will have opportunities to make masks later. You won't be left out of that fun. Today for our mini meal, we have Moroccan spiced red lentil stew, orange chicken with basmati rice, and pumpkin chocolate chip cake. At our Active Voices table, we have another postcard-orama. I love to say that, postcard-orama, We're signing messages today for the Equal Rights Amendment, climate crisis mitigation, paid family leave, and funding of roundtable prescription medication bills. Thank you, Active Voices, for making it easy for us to get our voices heard out in the world. And I'll just let you know that other congregations are now following our model of what Active Voices is doing. So you are making a bigger difference in the world. I heard it said at our board meeting this week that we're punching above our weight. So that's good. Today at noon, I'll be leading the noon program in the Chalice Room on bodily autonomy, and really that's about a little analysis of the reproductive justice bills, a little thought about the trans refuge bill, things that are moving through the Minnesota legislature, how they might work together or not work together. If you want a little help deciphering what's happening, join me at noon in the Chalice Room downstairs. Next week will be a big special assembly. The UU at UN Spring Intergenerational Seminar is happening here from April 1st through the 3rd. And so our Sunday assembly will have a great jazz band here, several different speakers. Our building will be full and lively, and we could use a few extra people to help be a welcoming face. So if you're interested in taking a volunteer shift or helping out with that, would you please see me or shoot me an email about that? I would be most grateful. And with that, thank you all, everyone, for all you do to make Sunday morning and all the week here special, both on-site, online, and all around our community. Thank you. Ever dadgum time. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again. See, we are ritual people.
Go out into the world. Be fearless. Ask questions. Hold on to what is good. Strengthen the weak. Comfort the fearful. Serve the suffering. Do what makes you come alive. Because, as the great Howard Thurman said, the world needs more people who have come alive. So may it be.
I
going to talk to you.